now with the call the meeting to order. I'm Darlene Ajkaneb. I'm the chair for the Police Services Board. This is the meeting for Wednesday, July 21st, 2021, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So welcome everybody. Item number two, land acknowledgement by Mayor Doug Lawrence.
Good afternoon, everybody. As we start our meeting, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Sioux First Nation within Treaty 3, and that many of the people we serve live in the communities of Treaties 5 and 9, the Anishinaabe Nation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. And Christine Sawanis, the other provincial appointee, is not able to attend this meeting, sending her regrets earlier today. So, okay, so we shall continue. Item number 3 on the agenda, 3A, introduction of amendments to the agenda. Anybody? No? Okay, we'll go on to 3B, confirmation of the agenda.
Well, it's just the two of us, so I'll so move.
And yeah, I'll second. Okay, great. Number 4, declarations of pecuniary interests. So there are none. So we'll go on to number 5, adoption of the minutes from April 21st, 2021. The Police Services Board minutes have been sent to everybody. So
if I may, Chair, there's also the set of minutes from the Special Police Services Board meeting of June 23rd in the package. It was omitted on the agenda, so if we can approve both sets, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll approve the meeting minutes from April 21st, 2021.
I move to approve.
Yeah. Okay. I'll second it. And then the meeting minutes for, I forget the date here. I'm trying to look at the date.
June the 23rd.
June 23rd. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, June 23rd, 2021. The Special Police Services Board meeting. With all the different guests from the different organizations like the Friendship Center from Norden. And this was regarding, most of the discussion was regarding the vulnerable people and what has been happening with the bush camp. So we'll approve the minutes for January 23rd, 2021, special meeting.
Yeah, I move.
Mayor moves and I second it. Okay, so both sets of minutes have been approved. Okay. And we'll go on to item number 6, which is the business arising from the minutes. Anything there, Mayor?
I would just ask Inspector Doolittle maybe just to give us a debrief on following that meeting on June the 23rd regarding the bush camp,
Okay.
what transpired.
All right. Okay, Carl, yes.
Okay, thank you. So after that meeting that we had discussing these camps, myself and the ops manager, we went for a walk specifically to the one in behind 74 First Ave, and we found that it had been completely taken down, and we don't know by who, and totally cleaned up and moved. So what we've learned since then, and in keeping you guys up to date as well, is it seems that then what's happening is that the camp is moving to different locations in that bush. It went way further back up behind Cedar Crescent. It lasted there for a couple of weeks. I think while I was on vacation, we had some issues there. Then when I got back, I went with a sergeant to go walk back there. It had moved again. And now it's quite a ways back in the bush, more in the direction behind 74, but it is quite a bit further back there. We went back there with the bylaw officer. It didn't appear that they had been having any fires back there, campfires. One of the members that was at the camp, there was 5 people there. One of them was one of the people that was taking care of the camp this past winter when it was behind the women's shelter. And what we find is when he is there, he kind of keeps things under wraps, right? He's keeping control of what's happening there. However, he's not there all the time. So we did explain to them, we talked to them about the issues with the fires. We reminded them of that. And we did spend some time to talk to them about the theft that's been happening, the victimization that's been happening to some people back there, and that we are going to be continuing to come back there and do patrols. And there is going to be a zero tolerance for being intoxicated back there and for fires. And then through conversations with the CAO and the fire chief, should we find any fires at all, no matter what day or time it is, we're going to call the fire department to make sure it's put out, just due to the fire risk that we have right now. So that is where we are. I think with the increased patrols that we've been doing of these various camps, I think that's what's keeping it moving around. And I think that's also helping reduce some of the victimization that had been happening in them before.
All right.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good. All right. And if there's nothing else, we'll move on to item number 7, which is items for discussion. And 7A, welcome Regional Commander Brian McKillop. So Inspector Carl, would you?
Sure. I'm happy to introduce everybody here to our new regional commander, Chief Brian McKillop. I'll let him explain his background, but I do know what I can say, that he comes to our region with a wealth of experience and lots of time spent in the Northwest region throughout his career. And I can tell you that I'm really excited about some of the direction that he wants to take us in. So, sir, if you want to introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that. And Chair and your worship, thanks for having me. It's much appreciated. By way of background, as Carl indicated, I spent 10 years at Marathon Detachment, where I left as the acting staff, then worked my way over to Kenora for 3 years as we worked through the amalgamation there, before going on to various other posts. And then realizing the error of my ways down south, I came back to Northwest here. My wife is born and raised in Marathon, so it puts us as close to home and family as we can be. I visited up in Sioux Lookout, not just for the process that picked Carl, a great choice for your community, but I've also gone up for a visit since, and I plan on going back in August. I won't be a stranger to your community. I can promise you that. And what I do want to say is, looking over statistics of the crime rates within your community, I can tell you that Inspector Duell is very much engaged in coming up with solutions. Your clearance rate for crimes that do occur is above the provincial average in both property and crimes of violence. And I think when it comes to crime rates, we have to be careful when we measure those rates, because you don't have a speeding problem until you start to enforce speeding. And all of a sudden the numbers start to creep up. And that's very true for the positive enforcement efforts that I can see Carl's putting into place. The other thing I want to highlight is Carl's exceptional leadership. Since I've been here, there's not been a detachment commander that's recognized their people for their great work in serving, interacting, and leading community initiatives and working with your citizenry more than Carl has. So I'm very pleased to see his contribution to the recognition of the members that serve your communities. And I think that transcends statistics, and in a very real and tangible way, the membership in Sioux Lookout, you're available for deployment rate. In other words, the people that are there working and able to work frontline duties is exceptionally high, well above the provincial average for a detachment as busy as they are. So my commitment is to support Carl in everything that he does. I will participate in any meeting you need me to be there for. And I hope not to be a stranger to this board. So I thank you very much for the invite. I might not stay for the entirety of the meeting, so I can let Carl do his thing. But I appreciate the invite, your time, and your commitment to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And was your regional commander, Brian, right? Just to tell us the region that you cover.
Certainly Northwest. So Northwest would go from Thunder Bay District, Rainy River District, and Kenora District.
Okay. And you're based out of Thunder Bay.
I am. So there's a superintendent that Carl would report to, Chuck Wesley. Again, not a stranger to your neck of the woods. And yeah, we look after in this region about 500 officers and civilian staff deployed across 9 detachments that go from the border right through to almost White River and Long Lac on the north side of Highway 11, right through to Fort Francis, Rainy River District area. So it's quite a broad region. We're there to support our First Nations policing partners acutely as well. And certainly Sioux Lookout is never far from the forefront of our minds.
Thank you very much. And I think, can echo your support and appreciation that Carl has become our local detachment commander, and look forward to seeing you at meetings and working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we'll just go on now to the next item on the agenda, which is 7B. So that is the second quarter OPP statistics, and we'll hand it over to Inspector Carl Dole to give us a review.
All right, thank you. So yeah, we'll just go through the quarterly report as we normally do. Should you see anything in the report that you'd like clarified, just ask. Otherwise, I'll try to go through what I think I've seen as important, some things that we know we need to work on. Okay, so currently for the quarter, we had no public complaints for service policy and conduct. For our daily activity reporting and our patrol hours, this is for that quarter, our members scored 334.5 hours to cruiser patrol. So what that means is that during this past quarter, we've had a few focus patrols that we've done. Some of them are in relation to that, looking after the park or the camps and things like that, or to the speeding complaints that we're getting on Drayton Road. So those hours are encapsulated in that number. What I have asked based on seeing that number is that we're going to renew our focus on making sure that when our officers are putting in that they're doing patrol or that they're doing, let's say, speeding enforcement, that they are making sure that they're selecting the right township. Because what I feel may be happening is that sometimes they're out just south of town on 72 doing speeding or traffic enforcement. And we need to make sure that we're scoring that to the right township. So that's something that we're going to look at. Another thing that's on here that we're going to look at is, I know our officers, especially now with this focus on our LLA enforcement, we're doing way more than these 23.5 hours of foot patrol are showing. So some messaging for me has gone out just to remind people that foot patrol is an important thing that the community is looking for. And I need to be able to accurately report back on that. So I apologize that number seems a bit low right now, but our focus is to accurately represent that moving forward. Okay, moving on. So now we're getting into the records management report. What we can see on the big picture here is that COVID restrictions are loosening, and we are starting to get lots of people returning to the community, traveling in and out. So our numbers are on the climb, and they're back trending towards our pre-COVID numbers. But I still think there's some things out there that we need to address. So the first one is the sexual assaults. And as the board remembers, pre-COVID, we do have a high number of sexual assaults, the highest in the region. But just looking at our comparables from last year to this year in the same quarter, from 4 to 19, that's concerning to me. So I met with Andrea DeGagne yesterday and our new detective sergeant, and I've asked that they identify stakeholders in the community, that we can look at doing some preventative measures for these sexual assaults. So our regional staff sergeant, Dana Wellick, who you all know, she's been able to pull some numbers for me on where sex assaults are happening. Right now we have that at the regional level, like where they're occurring, whether they're in hotels, residences, in the bush, whatever. And then she's getting that for me to narrow it down exactly in Sioux Lookout where these things are happening. And what we're looking at is a partnership with the Women's Shelter and SLFNA, and seeing if there's some messaging that can be done through those organizations to the women that come down for medical treatment through SLFNA, and see if there's some things that, maybe through some brainstorming, there's some proactive education that they can get, like how to make sure that they stay safe. Do they have somebody to take care of them? All those kinds of things. But I know that, Tana's really good at thinking outside the box with these type of things. So hopefully we can come up with some plans for that. And then the other one that I want to work on too is, if we're going to do messaging to the women out there, I think it's going to be important to maybe do some messaging to the men that come down as well. Maybe just maybe it's some pamphlets that they get when they check into the hostel, things like that, about understanding the consent rules and the laws that are around that kind of thing, and the dangers then of alcohol, and then being able to understand consent. So that's, anyway, long story to say is we're looking into that. We got to come up with a way. It shouldn't go from 4 to 19. We need to engage the public and the right people to help us reduce that stuff. I'm sure you can see there as well, assaults are on the rise. And again, I think we talked about that the last meeting. We do have a lot of domestic assaults, and that trend seems to be in keeping with just the stresses right now with being at home and not being able to go out and those kind of things. So that one didn't jump out to me too much, but anyway. Any questions about the violent crime before I move on?
Sure. I'm glad you added the part about educating men. It seems like when we put the onus on the victims of the crime, I do understand that, but how do we educate men? And also, you talked about largely people coming down for healthcare or whatever it is. Is that when maybe you haven't had a chance to review the locations and who it is, but is that where the predominance of these sexual assaults are happening in terms of the general nature of the victims? They're people who are in town for a short while, or are they people living here?
It seems from my conversations with Staff Sergeant Dana Wellick and with the detective sergeant that most of the victims that we have, the fair number of them, are not Sioux Lookout residents full time.
And they're in town because through the healthcare system?
That one is what I'm looking at, but I believe that to be just with the number that we're getting back coming into the community through SLFNA or for medical thing, that just seems to be the trend anyway.
So SLFNA, I guess, is our connection to the home communities. I'm wondering, do we engage with the home communities at all in terms of this education, or do we do it, leave that through SLFNA?
I think that's a good idea. And I think the first part would be to start with localized, like get everybody together, SLFNA, the Women's Shelter. And then from there, maybe it's it's relying on them to put that messaging up into those communities. Whatever they think might work best for that.
It's interesting. I mean, there's on a regular basis 250 people here through the SLIFNA hostel system as outpatients, and I think that number includes the guides, the people
Escorts.
accompanying escorts. Thanks. But on a regular bit, 250. Now, some of them will be staying for one night, and some for 4 nights, and maybe a smaller number for a few weeks as outpatients. But we have to remember that the vast majority of those people are not coming across in contact with law enforcement. It's a reasonably small percentage, well, significant percentage. It might be 5 or 10% at the most. I think it's less than that. So we have to make sure that in our education we're not painting everybody with the same brush. It's certain, it may be reasonably certain that's where the people are coming from, but it's not by any means the majority of the people who are coming for healthcare. So it's just a dance you have to dance to be respectful.
Absolutely, I agree, and I think it's it is just making sure that when we want to come up with some solutions so that if you're in this community, you are safe.
Yeah.
And what can we do for everybody? And that includes everybody too, right?
Yeah, and in no way am I suggesting not to. I'm just saying that it's we can't use a broad brush on that population that comes here and is really the backbone of the economy of Sioux Lookout, the healthcare system. So most of them are coming and going, just as we come and go to Thunder Bay for healthcare or whatever, and not getting into trouble. But keeping people safe, absolutely, Carl, 100%. And just one other, and this will, and a few of the other statistics is, and I understand the reporting, we're comparing 2021 to 2020, which 2020 we know was just a dip year because of lockdown and lack of people working or coming to our community. So it's the 2021 2019 comparison that this is informative, obviously, of what happens when the community shuts down. But the comparison is in a way 2019 rather than 2021. This makes it look like a terrible increase in crime, but it may be just back. It may be slightly above or below 2019 levels. I haven't dug out that report to see where they were, but I'm sure you'll have an idea.
Yeah, we're not. I don't think we're at that level still. Like, I still think we're just on the rebound, really.
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Chair, is it okay to move on to property crime then?
Yes.
Okay. So of note here is the theft under calls. So I looked into those. 9 of them were shoplifting occurrences. 7 of them were at the LCBO. 6 of the 7 involved the exact same female. So, I mean, I think the CAO and I spoke on this as well recently. Like, it might be time for us to invite the manager of the LCBO back to another meeting, and just to talk about it. What we're going to do moving forward, so that this trend at the LCBO we can do something about. That is our location for shoplifting in this community, and that is the theft unders for the most part. And I know there was some discussion when we had her here for a meeting before about talking to the corporate level about maybe some security during peak times, things like that. But I just wanted to bring those numbers to your attention. So out of those theft unders, 9 of them were shoplifting. 7 of the 9 shoplifting were directly at the LCBO.
Yes, Mayor.
So, Chair, maybe we could ask the inspector and the CAO to coordinate that meeting, to request a meeting with the LCBO to discuss uh, the theft hunters and security at the LCBO once again.
Mhm. Okay.
I think it would, if I may, through you, Darlene, if I may suggest too, that we also invite their regional manager as well, because the regional manager was on the call the last time. That person was, I can't remember his name, but he was supposed to be following up and getting back to us, and I don't believe he ever did. So I think that he should be at the table as well. So we can coordinate that.
All right.
All right. So we'll take that as we've given direction then, CAO. Good.
Correct.
All right. Okay, Carl, the next drug.
Okay, so yes, and so for the drug crime, seems to be pretty consistent there, and that's as the chief mentioned, we have a community drug officer. That's why now we have lots of charges in relation to the drug offenses. So, but in saying that, the current drug officer that we have, Detective Adam Rudd, just met with me yesterday, and he has indicated his interest to return to the front line. So the detective sergeant in the community, along with the regional OSEB, they will be posting that position, and we'll have a new person filling that position locally, so that we can keep our hand on the pulse here with this drug stuff happening. Also, then, as we move on to the clearance rates,
Hold on,
sorry,
Mayor, had something to say before we move on.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in regards to drug crime, these numbers don't appear to be huge. Do we continue to have lower drug crime than regional communities like Dryden and Kenora? And where is that number going in relative proportion to those communities?
so yes, we have less drug crime in this community compared to those communities. Like, less of it is being reported. And I mean, I know that our officers are dedicated and working on it, and there's enough, like, our drug officer is busy here, but it is not at the same level as what we would see or what we may see in other communities in the Northwest.
So I just want to distinguish between drug crime and drug use, I guess, or use of illegal drugs. Are we also lower in use of illegal drugs, or is it just lower in I guess it's the dealers, I suppose, that are represented in the crime part?
Yeah, like that's because I think what we deal with primarily, and as in for the police and for public safety in this community, is alcohol. That is the main thing that we deal with in this community. We certainly know that there is drug use going on in this community, and we see that from the needles in the bush up by the water tower or in behind First Ave. But it is, I mean, and I haven't seen the other stats from the other cities to directly compare it, but I just know from experience that I know that they are dealing with more issues in relation to overdoses and things like that than we are.
So if our drug crime is lower than Kenora and Dryden, I'm just using them as examples, do we have fewer dealers? How do the drugs come into town, and are there significant dealers in town bringing them in, distributing them? How does that work in relative terms?
So for the most part, and this is just from my experience, right? So a lot of the drugs that come into town are coming from bigger centers. So the back end is going to be likely somewhere towards Winnipeg potentially, or maybe Thunder Bay, and beyond there, I don't know. And then they work their way up through into the community. And I guess it's kind of relative. Like when you're asking me if we have great big dealers in this town, like we have seized, we've arrested, and we've done warrants and taken down some people that I would say for our community are pretty serious drug dealers, but it's a relative term, I guess. And I mean, I might lean on maybe the chief if he's willing. He has some expertise coming from organized crime. In his last role, he might be able to offer maybe some perspective on this.
Certainly. So absolutely, the communities that fall along the major transportation routes or corridors are usually significantly at greater risk of having higher level criminality or trafficking. So proportionately, Sioux Lookout is much better off from I'll use the term synthetic drug versus alcohol. Alcohol, absolutely, as Inspector Duell said, is the primary concern for Sioux Lookout. And drug dealers are relative, right? A relatively large drug dealer in Sioux Lookout could be much smaller than a drug dealer of significance in, say, Thunder Bay. What you're seeing across the region is a migration of street gang activity out of Ottawa, Winnipeg, and Toronto. And they are influencing the drug market significantly across the entire region. Recently, our Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau took down a project in Fort Francis, dubbed Project Jules, in which the time they were dealing with GTA and Ottawa-based drug dealers in the city of Fort Francis, to show you how widespread that is. And there's been an ongoing project called Disruption right here in Thunder Bay, where we're trying to mitigate the risk to your community by intercepting drug dealers in the city here before they displace themselves and move on to the smaller markets like yours in Sioux Lookout. So there's a lot of work being done across the board in larger communities to mitigate the risk for your smaller communities. And you're seeing I'll say the benefits of the work being done regionally in Sioux Lookout. And you do have an active community street crime unit. They're very much supported by the detachment. That the numbers may not be big, but you can't measure the deterrence factor of that. And I think it's incredibly important that we focus on the fact that we do not target the user, we target the trafficker. Recognizing, of course, that in many cases, problematic substance use is a health issue that needs to be dealt with through that agency or harm reduction agencies or social service agencies. Our role is to target the trafficker, and your overdoses are significantly lower than most communities that are on the more significant transport routes. You haven't seen that influence of fentanyl that a lot of other areas are that is causing a spike in overdoses. So across the board, the deterrence factor, the proactive efforts of your members, and the efforts of the Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau and other teams regionally, I think have helped your community and other more remote communities who are not experiencing the influx of drugs we're seeing in our larger urban areas. Hopefully that answers your question, Your Worship.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next page.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that. Okay, so also as the chief superintendent mentioned, our clearance rates remain above the provincial average. I actually had a brief email conversation with the chief yesterday about this, and but this is something that we can, like, they are down, and that gives us something to work towards. You know, we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can in order to solve our violent property and drug crime that's out there. So that's just something that we're going to continue to focus on. And then, yeah, that's really the data on that page that I wanted to mention. So now we can move to the billing summary report, unless there was any questions there. Okay. And I flagged Sorry, I flagged a couple of things that I wanted to mention. Just as far as we work our way, again, I'm just gonna work through what I flagged in the billing summary, but if anybody has any questions, just let me know. We see that we have a bit of a, like, the overall hours are increasing, which we knew would happen based on the restrictions for COVID lessening, and our population increasing. Bail violations failed to comply. They are up this year compared to last year. A lot of that, we're at 45 for this quarter this year compared to 29 last year. That is, I think during that second quarter last year, there wasn't a lot of things happening with the court system. So now we've got people being released again out on conditions, and people are out there breaching their conditions. The only other one that I flagged for interest's sake is, I know that I think a year or two ago we had discussed as a committee our numbers for our 911 calls, the 911 hangups and the 911 pocket dials and 911 drop calls, and I just noticed that they're kind of, even though we've got more people coming, I think the messaging is starting to get out there that and we're having an effect with these 911 pocket dials. So I thought that was good. But other than that, I'll let you take a chance to review it. And if you have any questions, I can answer them as far as the billing goes.
No questions. I will add these numbers to my spreadsheet and see where it's going overall over the last 10 or 12 years. And we have received confirmation, Michelle, of a delegation with the Solicitor General at AMO.
Great.
Sorry, you were muted, Michelle.
Sorry, Your Worship. I believe that one we're still working. No, Solicitor General we have. The Attorney General, where there's a conflict, so we're still working on that. But we do have Solicitor General.
Yeah. So we'll take our statistics to the Solicitor General once again. Always interesting. Has anybody here heard where they're going with the billing model that was due to change? It probably not. Maybe it's not on your radar, but
I haven't heard anything about it. I don't know. No, Chief's saying no as well. But if that is something that you're like, I didn't even know that there was a change happening with it. But if there is, and that's something that you're interested in, I can talk to the Municipal Policing Bureau about maybe calling in on our next meeting to talk to you about it if you'd like.
as far as I think the current billing model came into play January 2015, and after 5 years it was to be, I thought, reviewed and tweaked. Isn't that, Michelle? Is that?
Yes, that's part of the new Community Safety and Policing Act. That was another component of it. Right now, it's the Police Services Boards that makes up of the board, so that the applications were to have been submitted early June, to which we did, and that's supposed to come into play, I believe, in January of 2022. And then there was, in the consultations that I attended, we talked about police billing, and they said that had been yet to be, I don't know if they're doing a consultation process, but it's kind of been, I know that we reiterated to the minister that we wanted to be involved in that, because of course we hit that subsidized table, and there's no word yet whether or not there's even going to be a subsidized table or what that will look like. So that's what we're interested in, making sure that our interests are known to the minister.
Yeah, of all the Carl, of the 324 municipalities in Ontario policed by the OPP, you have the two highest costs in your detachment, Pickle Lake and Sioux Lookout. And regional commander, you have the top three, and you're when we include Pickle Lake, Sioux Lookout, Kenora, and I think 6 of the top 12 out of 324 are in your in the regional commanders. I think Red Lake and Fort Francis are up there. And I thought there was Ignace is quite high, and that doesn't include non-OPP communities like Dryden, which I think its costs are going to be quite very high, and Thunder Bay as well. And there are reasons for that, and there you have it. But Pickle Lake and Sioux Lookout are and actually Kenora is getting close, but we are outliers beyond on 324, where Pickle Lake is nine standard deviations off the norm. We're 6.5, and Kenora is 4.5, and then you have to drop down. I think Red Lake is only just over 3. It drops quite quickly. So the outliers are really penalized here in terms of policing costs, and we are truly there's a handful, and we'd just like to see those costs shared across the province. We're being penalized for things that are beyond our control in terms of tax dollars locally and policing costs. And the policing model has a chance to be revised here. The subsidy table never worked. Regional commander, I'm not sure if you've heard, but the subsidy table was poorly designed. It only included only 2 of the 324 communities could enter it, Pickle Lake and Sioux Lookout. And in fact, we were penalized for reducing our crime. We stayed at the same level. We could increase our subsidy by increasing crime and lower our policing costs. The subsidy table was broken at its inception, only served 2 communities, didn't serve them well. There's an opportunity to change this and get some fairness here when they do make the change. And we'd like to be involved, have our voice heard, because most of the communities, when you look at and Carl, I know you thank you for sending me some information. I had that 5 or 6 years ago. The majority of the municipalities in Ontario, the vast majority, 300 or more, are below average. We bump up the averages up here. We need help, and sorry, Regional Commander, I'm just taking advantage of this Police Services Board meeting to make sure you're on board with that.
That's what I'm here for, sir. And having spent most of my career in the north, I can tell you that, having worked in areas like Hawkesbury, if you're not familiar with it, in the east, when you're a social service hub, which you are, and which Kenora is, that's what you've named, including Thunder Bay as well as Dryden, you are disadvantaged because you have individuals that come to your community to take advantage of healthcare, shopping, any number of reasons they come to those communities, and you bear the brunt of that type of crime disorder and the issues that policing have to deal with. So that's not lost on me. Whatever I can do to advocate in support of that, I'd be more than happy to.
And the provincial healthcare system, along with the federal system that works here, pays virtually no property taxes. The LCBO, sorry, another pain in our side is, I mean, I'm not a teetotaler, but they make a huge profit here, and the profit, which ultimately goes to the province, and we get not a penny spent on the antidote to detox or any of the other things here. So the province is making money out of Sioux Lookout, pushing up municipal costs to the benefit of the province.
And I can tell you, Inspector Duell is very much engaged in supporting harm reduction and health services within the area that could remove the burden of policing. I don't know if across the province people were aware that much of social disorder issues, health issues, and even harm reduction issues are borne by policing in a lot of communities where there is lack of equitable access to healthcare, harm reduction services, detox, housing, and all those different things. And quite frankly, as we go down the path of decriminalization, and that's a great idea. I do believe it's should be borne by the health sector if you have equal access to those resources. If not, police tend to just continue to bear the brunt, and you bear the cost of that, right? So how do you established equal access to all these services within your area that can remove that responsibility from policing. We know that shouldn't be within our realm, but we're by default, we're the only ones that can deal with that. Inspector Dool is very much aware, very supportive of it, and we will do everything we can within the OPP to support your efforts in obtaining those services, which would by default reduce your crime rate.
Absolutely. They would help people's lives and reduce the cost. We just transfer, they spend your money wisely. You know, they're spending money beating their head against a brick wall here. We know the answers. Spend your money on that and watch the other costs go down. Defund the police, sure, I'm all for it, as long as you fund something else to take over from the police. Defund the police would be the craziest thing to do, without recognizing where you need to fund. Sorry, Carl.
Oh, totally agree, sir.
Chair, sorry.
Okay, well, I hope somebody hears you at the AMO conference. Okay. All right, so are we done the stats now then?
Yes, Chair, thank you. That's all I have on that.
Okay, thank you very much for presenting them. All right, we'll move on to 7C, which is the safety issues on Drayton Road and Fifth Avenue and Wellington report. Inspector Carl Dool.
Okay, so this came up at our last quarterly meeting, and based on some discussion that we had then, I brought in our acting staff sergeant that's in charge of traffic, and he came up and I just wanted to bring him up for his expertise on what he thought about the issues on Drayton Road and the speeding that's happening, or the speeding that is happening on that street. And enough focus for him was the intersection at Old Mill Road or Mill Road, and how that is a section where we do have children crossing the road to get into Drayton Cash and Carry, the store. So there is, things that he mentioned in his expertise was community safety zones are an option for communities to consider. Whether or not there could be traffic control placed at that intersection, as in a three-way stop, is an option that would, in his opinion, could make things. Sorry, sir, you gotta go. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, and sorry to interrupt.
Sorry. So that was another option that he thought may help reduce at least the speed and make it safer for, maybe not so much reduce the speed because we don't want to use stop signs for that, but make it safer for the youth that are walking up and down that street and that end up crossing there to go to Drayton Cash and Carry. When we move over to Wellington, we just looked at that. Should that area in there end up being developed further? That intersection is precarious as it is, with lots of different things going on, especially if you're coming from in town heading out of town on Wellington, at the Tim Hortons there with the turning lanes and the crosswalk and stuff like that. So should there be more development in there? I mean, his thoughts again were potentially more control might be safer there.
Okay.
That was his perspective, as I wanted to bring him in as the traffic kind of expert to see what he thought, but I know that it's pretty anecdotal, so.
All right, Mayor, yes.
Sure, thanks, Chair. It's interesting, the CAO can comment. We've been, MTO has agreed to put in a crosswalk at the Forest Inn, Old Best Western crossing, where now the Slefna JMT2 is, a crosswalk to get across between the municipal pathway and across Highway 72. So MTO, I think, is initially it was just to be a crosswalk, and now, you can confirm, I think they've agreed to put in a full traffic light system there.
Yes, as per recent correspondence from our former Public Works manager, they indicated in an email that they would be looking, that the recommendation would be to put in a full set of lights there.
So my understanding, going back to the Wellington crossing that the inspector is talking about, is that the numbers at the time, several years ago, when we did that upgrade, didn't warrant lights there. But it's interesting that the numbers, I would think, would be at least as high at that intersection as they are at the Sturgeon River crossing. Not sure. I think I agree. I think that intersection there is precarious at Wellington Avenue. I really do, for pedestrians and for vehicles. I know coming out of Lakeshore Drive now, where I live, at the town beach, if you're leaving town, you turn right immediately to go down Lakeshore Drive. Coming out of there at the wrong time of day involves minutes of waiting. It is at the 8 o'clock to 8:30 hour, or the 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon. The flow of traffic is seemingly endless. Can not only frustrating, but then it gets to the danger point, and the traffic comes around from that Wellington corner, comes around the curve at the water plant and sweeping into town, and seems like the accelerator goes on, or it's a nice racing curve. People, and with that, what the apparent speed, even if it's only 60, it makes it difficult to, even when there seems to be a break in the traffic, the vehicles are coming pretty quick. And the same going out of town too. When they come out of the underpass, they've come out of a nice sweeping curve, and they can be traveling along at at 60 kilometers per hour. Anyway, I agree, Inspector. I think that's a precarious and perilous corner, and it warrants, I think, perhaps beginning to look at more control. I'm not sure what you think, CAO.
We've been, through you, Chair, we've been discussing that at a staff level at this point. I've discussed it recently with our former Public Works manager, as well as our Development Services manager, because there is development going to be starting in the near future. Building permit was issued to start the development on the property adjacent to Tim Hortons, which will draw more traffic. So I think we're looking at updating our traffic study from the previous one that we did.
Okay, good. And with respect to Drayton, I'm not sure where, I think this is just, as you said, anecdotal report, Inspector?
Yeah, it was just something to look at, because we do know that we're getting complaints of speeding and dangerous conditions along that road. And so that was one option. I know that, sorry, CAO.
I'll wait till you're finished.
Okay. There was some discussion we'd had at previous meetings about getting that system that tracks speeding. And these are all different options that we have on the table just to look at.
All right, Michelle.
And just to speak to that speed sign, if any of you have been coming towards the downtown on Fifth Avenue, it's actually set up and working at the Public Works Department on Fifth Avenue. It's been there for, I'd say, about 2 weeks now. When it came in, we decided not to go with the one with the trailer, because the width of some of our rural roads aren't wide enough to be able to have it sit on a trailer with wheels and kind of hook up to a hitch to the back of a vehicle. So our staff at the Public Works Department devised a stand for it to stand on, so it's still portable. So that's been there, and I actually have a meeting this afternoon with Matt Lalonde to discuss where we're going to move it first. So that would be a conversation too with you, Inspector Duell, to determine where you think we should put it on Drayton Road as a start to monitor that traffic speed. And that will help us make some decisions moving forward with reference to maybe a community safety zone or the three-way stop.
That's great. And then who will be doing the download of it?
Well, we still have to discuss that right now with one of our staff that set it up at the Public Works Department. So right now what we have is it's cloud-based and it's with the software for about a year, and then we would have to purchase a separate software, but it's with the purchase of the sign. So right now it's being housed, what I think, at the Public Works Department. I'm not sure if it's on our server or not, but that's something we can talk about if we want it to go directly to the OPP or we want to monitor it and send that information over. I'm not sure about how the software works. That's why I'm having that meeting this afternoon.
Okay, so in my experience with those things, it was the municipality would download or would take the data, and then they would share it with the operations manager at the detachment in an Excel. I think it came in an Excel document, that version. I don't know what yours looks like. And then it was the police services board, in consultation, obviously, with everybody that would, because I think what we're going to talk about maybe next is what I've noticed is that the police service board or the municipality receives complaints for various different things that I don't know about. So I think it's a good opportunity at the board meeting too, to discuss where to put them, because you will know what speeding complaints you're getting at the municipal level. And then I know, where we may see speeding, and we could be an option to figure that out that way.
I think from the original council meeting where Ms. Positano came, the specific complaint was on Drayton. So I think I think the commitment was to start there first and then to other areas, but for sure. So I will follow up following this meeting once I determine how the software is working and where it's housed.
Sure. And then if it's okay, Chair, one experience that I did have with that, and we need to be prepared for it, is that there'll always be outliers too when we look at these data. It'll be interesting to see, because sometimes it's maybe considered a challenge or whatever, right? So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to getting this data. Actually, it'd be neat.
All right. Okay, so Michelle will look into that sign. Okay, we'll just go on now to 7D, the citizen complaint. Michelle?
Through you, Chair Darlene, I had already just happened to have a meeting with Carl on another matter, Inspector Duell on another matter last week. So we discussed this, but I wanted to bring it to the board's attention because of course it involves a couple of instances. This one person reported that they were in the playground at the TIC with their grandchildren and found a lot of cigarette butts and broken glass and some syringes. And he noticed that there were some people sleeping underneath the tent at the TIC as well. And he requested that perhaps more patrols be done to monitor that area as well, because families aren't feeling safe going to the TIC with their children and grandchildren to play and seeing that kind of garbage. I've also followed up with our recreation manager to make sure that park is monitored on a regular basis and that the sand is checked and so that it's safer for the community to use it. So we've already discussed that I've already discussed that with Inspector Duell. I just wanted the board to be aware that complaint came in, and Inspector Duell may want to speak to it, but I believe that you're continuing to include that as part of your patrol.
Okay.
And the second complaint the same individual had was that, and this could be brought up when we speak to the manager, organize the meeting with the manager of the liquor store and the regional manager. This person also said that they witnessed somebody that was intoxicated that actually was able to buy liquor at the LCBO. So they were concerned about that was happening.
All right. Okay, so I suppose with the second complaint, it could be addressed if we have the LCBO people come to the next meeting, or one of the next meetings. Okay, yes, Mayor.
On the first complaint, it's The waterfront, I think, attracts individuals and groups for various reasons. Among them, the activities you were alluding to there, CAO. The town beach will certainly attract that, as it already does, I think, a little bit, the new docks and staying out of the construction zone, I think, largely right now, but it will become an attractive area that we have talked about. We will need to make sure that that's on a frequent patrol basis as well. Interesting, I live along on Lakeshore, as I've said, and just 2 or 3 mornings ago, one of my neighbors, 2 houses down, said that early in the morning, just at breakfast, 6:30, 7 o'clock, that they thought a bear was coming up their steps from their waterfront area. It turns out it was a young lady, 23-year-old, who was soaking wet, wearing a hoodie, and had been in the water as far as they could discern for a few hours. They called the police, Carl, and the police did come, and I think she was beginning to suffer from hypothermia. Heavens knows what the story is behind that. But it's I'm surprised. On my morning dog walks, I go down to a little beach area and whatever, and there's often evidence of a late night beach party, sometimes some overnight campers. I'm surprised there aren't more accidents on the waterfront, actually, given the state of some people, and maybe who knows, this young girl was seeking safety in the water. I don't know. But yeah, patrolling those waterfront and beach areas down from Chair, if you remember where the sunrise ceremony was on Rotary Park Hill there, and down that slope there towards the new municipal docks. There's often people in that area.
Yeah.
So since our meeting, and when I think we just had a meeting at the municipal office to talk about some of this stuff. We have implemented some strategic patrols that we're doing now on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, the busiest days, and from what it appears anyway. And we're strictly in these there's 2 members coming in every day, and they are working from 1 to 7 with the focus on issues related to the Liquor License Act. So they are expected, and I know they've done great work already, and it's only been going on this is the 3rd weekend now. And their focus is to be in the downtown core, the town beach. I mean, right now it's closed. It's still one of the areas that they go to. And now we know the Tourist Information Center area is another high place to go. But they also go up to the water tower and over to the camps behind First Ave. So, but their main goal is to respond to all calls for service that have to deal with people that are intoxicated on those days that they're working, and then just to be out on foot or to be out and about, and for visibility and to help people be safe and feel safe. Another thing that they're required to do is it is boating season out there. And so they are doing ride patrols. This group is doing 3 rides a shift, and they are focusing them at our boat launches and things like that. So we just need to make sure that those people that are out enjoying the waterways too are being safe.
Yeah, and then the other thing is when the mayor was mentioning about the sunrise for the residential school student, the sunrise ceremony that was held. Ceremonies are held around 5 o'clock in the morning, so people get there about 4:30, 4:45, and anyway, yeah, there were people who were drinking at the lookout points. I suppose that they call it Suicide Hill, and that's where they were drinking. So I was really surprised to see them out that early in the morning, and so yeah. So I guess they probably get out there, yeah, at that early part of the morning. So
Yeah, and we'd also talked about it too. So for part of the chair, for part of the planning for this is we do have one of our mental health crisis workers on board. They we have a second one has now just been hired, so there will be two. And then we've also worked with SLIFNA and their mobile response team. And they are on select days coming in the morning to meet with the clients as they're being released, just to see if there's any services that they can be offered and try to connect them with services. So we are trying our best to get out there and make sure that the people that are out there consuming have a safe place to go. Unfortunately, as we all know, in this right now, we're kind of left with the shelter's great, but it fills up very quickly, and some people don't want to go there, and some people, by the time we're able to try to help them, they're too far gone, and they're not in agreement to go there, so they either will be coming here for the evening, or we have that great relationship with the hospital too, and they've been doing some pretty good work with, or some pretty exceptional work with their limited capacity as well to help people in that situation.
all right. Okay, so anything else for this meeting? Yes, Mayor.
I would just say, I think on behalf of the Police Services Board and Chair, you can, to Carl, please pass along our thanks to your membership for all that they're doing and all the work they do in what can be, I'm sure, difficult circumstances on behalf of the community. And also for the great cooperation that there is between the OPP and the many agencies in our community.
Yes.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so our next meeting date is October 20th, 21st, at 1 p.m. same time. So October 20th is the next meeting date. And item number 9, the motion to adjourn this meeting. So
Chair, just
Carl, yes.
sorry, Chair, just one thing.
Yeah.
If over the next few months before we get to October, if you do feel you would like a presentation from any of our units, just let me know. I know there's some interest, it seems, in the drug culture in the Northwest, and if we need to have one of our current leaders in the drug unit out of Thunder Bay or Kenora, it would just be a request, and then they could come. I do plan on the next meeting introducing you to our new detective sergeant if you'd like to meet her. And if maybe by then our meetings will be in person, and I may have some recruits that I need to bring by to introduce to you as well.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. All right, motion to adjourn this meeting. Yeah, Mayor, okay. That's it then. So we'll see you in October. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, Chair.